This is LeAnna, which I made sure that I was going to say her name right before we got started because everybody pronounces everything different. I have a cousin who's Andrea. I have another best friend who's Andrea. So, you never know. And I certainly don't want to spend the whole time calling you the wrong name. And then you're like, well, I really wish you would have asked because I would have told you that it was LeAnna. So LeAnna Shields. And, so tell us a little bit about you. This is Out on a Limb with Gabby Allen. And I just kind of want to chat. I want to bring the readers into both the writer world as well as you have an amazing podcast called the Cozy Sleuth. So wherever you want to start, tell us a little about you.
Well, I'm LeAnna Shields, and wow, I almost said you're listening to the Cozy Sleuth. Hard to get out of that host mode, isn't it?
I guess so. I haven't gotten there yet. This is my first time. So I will probably do the same thing.
But I have been a writer for 10 years, self-published.
Awesome.
This year, I just got signed to a small publishing house, so that was amazing.
Who are you going to be with?
It's kind of hard to remember all the letters in this acronym. It's SPBP, Summer Prescott Books Publishing.
Oh, okay. Now, are they digital first? Are they? I don't know them, so I'm sorry if that's a weird question.
They've covered both paperback and digital, and they are a great company to work with. I love working with them.
Awesome. When did you sign with them?
Very recently, February this year.
Okay, and when will your book be out then?
The first book is already out because she took over my first book in my Mystic Ranch Mysteries series.
Oh, okay.
Called Sparks of Suspicion.
I did see that.
And second book called Stock Show Stalker will eventually be out. I'm not sure on the date of that just yet.
Okay. And so you said Mystic Cowboys. So are we talking, I did see on your Amazon page, you have like some sci-fi. It looked like you had some paranormal. And so like, which one is this going into?
This would probably fall into paranormal, though personally, I don't consider it that because in my mind my is like witches, ghosts, goblins. My main character is an elf.
Oh,
and she runs an alpaca llama ranch in southern Colorado.
You know, it's so funny. I don't know how you feel about this, but there's a thing that goes around at like conferences or writer talk groups, and it's like a cosmic soup that's above all of us, and there's all these ideas coming, and you'll have somebody in like Colorado and someone in Pennsylvania where I am, and you'll both get kind of the same idea out of nowhere. Like you haven't read the same article, you haven't happened across the same website that kind of sparked where this came from, and then all of a sudden, like, you'll both get the same idea. Now, one of you might not do it, you might both do it, and it's always going to be different because you have two different, I call them filters. So like the things that you go through in life, the way that you process different things, you're going to have a specific kind of character maybe that you write. And so it's just going to be different, but it's almost like you pull it out of the air and you're like, I don't know where these alpacas came from, but I love the idea of alpacas. That's so much fun. So much fun. So they'll be running that. And then I know that you do a lot of mystery. So will there be a mystery in there too?
Yes. And like with Sparks of Suspicion, my main character, Sabia, has to figure out who killed a gnome on her property.
I love gnomes. I have to tell you, so I have a book called Having a Ball, and she gets this magic 8-ball and it talks to her. Like, so instead of saying like yes, no, maybe, it'll say like, Danner, what are you doing? Why are you talking to me right now? And so yeah, it's fun. But she gets a gnome with it, and he's lived in the wall for 100 years. And so when he comes out, he's like, I want mead and bread. And she's like, well, I mean, you can have a Corona and a pizza, because that's about all I've got. And so he's like watching MTV, and he's doing all these things, and he's like throwing the lingo at her, and she has to find this book. And I won't ruin where the book is, but I love dealing with, I guess I would call it kind of slightly different paranormal aspects. So anything that's not normal is going to be considered on, Amazon with your keywords paranormal. But I like the ones that aren't necessarily the witches and the vampires and the, vampires. There's like, what else can you do? We already have sparkly ones. I don't know if I can really do anything more. So is it a world where like everyone is elves, or is it there are elves and everybody else doesn't know about them?
Actually, they're mythics from like all over the world.
Okay.
So on her ranch, she also has a foreman named Cyrus, and he is a centaur. And this guy has been like her, I don't know whether to call him like a foster father, because it's not like she was in the foster system, but it was like her father died when she was 13, and he kind of took up that mantle.
So he's like a stand-in.
Yes, he's a stand-in.
Okay.
But she also has a best friend who runs the local coffee shop called Sparks.
Nice.
And she is a centaur.
Oh, in fact, do they present as centaurs?
Yes.
Okay, very cool.
And actually, the first scene you meet this character, Sabia's come from the mall from Hot Topic with some ear gauges for her for her friend.
My kid used to work at Hot Topic, and I was like, where did your check go? Like, I know you got paid. I'm not seeing anything in your account, because there's so many things that you could love there. I found it's a sticker for the back of your car, and it's like this little death, and it's the Reaper, and he's like standing there in a little purple robe, and he's like smiling at you, and I was like, slap that on the back of my car, because that has to be out in the world.
For me, it was their Doctor Who stuff. I am a huge fan of Doctor Who.
How can you not be?
I know.
I mean, we have the Doctor Who dress with the petticoat underneath it, and it is the TARDIS. And I'm nice. Like, okay, like I can't wear that, but my kid used to wear it, and I'm like, I'm so jealous. I would put that on in a heartbeat.
Let's see, my sister got me a Doctor Who potato head one year for Christmas.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know they made something like that. That's awesome.
It's the 11th Doctor.
Okay. Got it.
And believe me, I am so tempted, because Build-A-Bear has released their Doctor Who collection.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I want this. I want this.
That can be really problematic, you know? Yes. I mean, you can see behind me, I have a lot of crap back there. And, I mean, the pop vinyl figures that they have, I'm like, don't look at the wall. Don't look at the wall. Just keep on walking by. But I mean, I think, as a writer, you do gain inspiration from all kinds of places. People will always ask, where do you get your ideas? And I'm like, it's not like picking up coffee. I mean, you do a little bit here and a little bit there, and something that you saw, so where did you come up with Sparks, and where did you come up with the alpacas?
Alpacas, I just love alpacas. They're so fluffy and cute.
They're a little bit sassy though. My
Yes,
great
yes.
uncle had alpacas, and he called them the Three Stooges, and they would literally just come over to the fence and they would like spit at you. And I'm like, you know what? You're not getting a treaty. That's just all there is to it. You had the opportunity for a treaty and you spit at me, and we're not doing it now.
And as for the inspiration of the world of Sparks, I actually saw this thing on Pinterest once that said, I'm tired of worlds where magic is relegated to knights and ladies and castles. So I want a world where you can go into, say, Starbucks and get a latte with a shot of confidence because you've got that big meeting coming up.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So is that in there?
Yes.
Oh, yes. How cool. So it's almost like, what do they call that? Magic realism.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And that's really fun to play with because, it's one thing to do where the magic is hidden, and you have people who can do things, but they're only allowed to do them in certain places, and everything is like very secret. But the ones where it's out and about is interesting. So she'll use the magic to help with the mystery solving. Like, what, as an elf, what is her magic?
Well, she is what's known as an eco mage. She has a very tight connection to her land. When she first discovers the gnome's body, it's because her goats are acting very unusual. They're anxious, they're afraid. So she joins her senses with theirs. And she's like, they smell blood. They sense a predator. Something is wrong.
Okay.
But she's also what's called a seer, which means with certain areas, she can touch something and see a glimpse of the past. Now, that doesn't come really into effect until the third book, which I'm working on, called Stolen Vows.
Ooh, I love it.
Which, okay, huge spoiler alert. In book one, Sabia meets this guy named Bridger, who is more than he appears.
As you do. You have to.
They end up getting engaged. Stock Show Stalker is them planning their wedding, and there's, of course, a murder that they have to solve together.
Yes.
And then there's Stolen Vows, the wedding. Which, of course, can never go smoothly in a mystery.
No.
And his cousin, who, by the time it happens, you will be saying, it's about time. His cousin, unfortunately, is the victim.
Oh, well. So somehow I feel, even with the spoiler, that I might not be too upset that his cousin is the one who goes.
Oh, trust me, this guy definitely earns it. He runs... I don't know if you're familiar with the old movie High Society.
Oh, yes. I
took kind of ideas from that. Like, there's a tabloid in this book called Mages Monthly.
Okay.
Which Bridger's cousin owns.
Ah.
And here's the cozy twist I put on it. He has now turned that tabloid on Sabia, he's looking to try and push her out of the wedding with it.
Interesting. Well, and that's, again, you're in a spot when you're creating worlds, and you're in control of that to some extent, but not always, because sometimes things come out of nowhere and you're like, all right, well, we'll deal with that. And so, like, how do you manage your way through that? Like, do you kind of roll with it, or do you say, well, that wasn't what I planned, so we're gonna ignore you, which does not ever work for me, but maybe it's different for you?
Oh no. One of my favorite quotes I ever found on Facebook is, I create the characters, and then from then on, I take dictation.
Oh, yes. Isn't that interesting? Like, I love, and it's, you know, as you're going through these stories and you're writing, everybody is different, but for me that is what it feels like I, you know, I write Ren Fair, and everyone in the Ren Fair is a misfit. And so like the werewolf can only change his nose and his tail. The dragon does not do anything but blow smoke. And so like everybody does not do what they're supposed to do. And that was like the initial thought. And then like this dog shows up, and he's supposed to be a protector, but he ends up being a one instead of three-headed Cerberus that crosses, but he's this little tiny chow. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with you? Like, how? And then I was like, all right, so his name is going to be, it's Figiggly. And I was like, really? You're going to name a dog Figiggly? Are you out of your... All right, well, that's going to mess with my Microsoft Word every single time I type it. So I ended up putting it into the dictionary because I didn't want to have to deal with that. But, you know, I mean, with that, I think we do ourselves a favor by seeing where something's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And Absolutely. So you do that?
I try. I'll say that. Like with Stock Show Stalker, I had it where, okay, this person's going to be the killer. I'll set it up this way. All of a sudden, this character over here is like, no, hi, I did it.
You're like, no, wait, I'm not ready. No, you can't. Oh, all right, you did do it. Oh, all right. I did that. I wrote the Ivy Morris mysteries years and years ago, and then they came out again in 2010, maybe. I think I wrote them the first time starting in 2005, and the fifth book, I was like, okay, I know who the killer is. I get to like page 200, and I'm like, what? No, well. You can't be the killer if you just died. What do I do now? Who's the killer? Oh no. You know, and I'm on like deadline, and I'm thinking, well, oh my gosh. Okay, now I know who the killer is. And it was all there. Like, do you find that though, that when something comes in like that you don't have to go back to the beginning and start rebuilding it? You've actually already built it to where it does make sense for that person to be the killer?
Actually, yeah, it has happened that way. Stock Show Stalker happened that way. Mm-hmm. Stolen Vows, the killer kind of popped out of nowhere. So I had to go back and add her in into some scenes where it's like, okay, this person did not just pop out of the ether.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what, for readers, do not pop them out of the middle of nowhere. They do not like that. If you, I have found, so to me, and I've said this before, but like a cozy mystery, paranormal, sci-fi, whatever you're doing, if you have an amateur sleuth, your reader wants to play a game with you. And they want to be able to beat you. They don't really want to beat you because they want to be able to be surprised also. But you need to have put it through that if they had been paying really close attention, they could have figured it out potentially. Because if you don't, that's a wall banger. Those are the ones that get thrown across the room, and you're like, let's see, it's about 20 feet to the can I make a hole? Because I'm pretty sure I could make a hole right now. And then they don't trust you anymore because they don't think that they're like, that's the whole point. When you're now, you know, if you're going to do Murder, She Wrote or watch one of those, I will never be in a town where Jessica Fletcher is. If she shows up, I'm out, because it's like worse than wearing a red shirt on Star Trek. You know you're dead, and you might as well just lay down now and leave a note for who did it. But, you know, if you don't play fair, I read one, I don't remember who it was, and I wouldn't say who it was even if I did remember, but I hadn't seen this person the whole book. They don't exist. I've never, and I actually went back, I bought the ebook and I did a word search for anything that would have identified this person. They were not there at all.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, you're on page 302 and you have just out of the blue, there's this woman. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't trust that you're going to play fair with me. I at least want to maybe be able to figure it out. I'm not saying, sometimes I read purely for pleasure and I just want to be surprised at the end. But I would like to like think, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I can't believe that I totally missed that, versus what? Where did you come from? You don't even, what did you do? Just stalk right in and do your thing? You know, I mean, it's, do you do that with each of your books? Like, do you make sure that all the pieces are in there? Or is that something that you've learned along the way, that it's better to make sure your pieces are in there?
I do my best. With Sparks, I had a lot of fun with this killer. He could change his face. So he pops up looking like a different character every time he popped up.
Oh, so like a skinwalker, or is it just his face? Like, is it a glamour type thing?
He's called a changeling.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
It's a complete shift. In fact, in one point he shows up as Sabia's twin sister.
Oh.
Like right down to voice and everything.
Now, does she actually have a twin sister?
Yes, she has a twin sister named Layla.
So does he have to be something that already exists, or can he make something up?
In this case, I just had him be what exists. So
okay. In having a ball, I have a thing named Mort, and he can only become what already exists. So like my character's name is Danner, and she like goes into the post office, and the post office lady's like rubbing on herself, and Danner's like, I don't think that's appropriate, and she's like, well, this is very new, I don't know what's going on, and it turns out that it's because it's actually Mort. And so, but he cannot make himself into anything that he can't see. He has to be able to see it to then be able to transform into it. So that can be a lot of fun.
And the only limit is he can't change the color of his eyes. So
nicely done.
Whenever the readers saw a character with rainbow color eyes,
nice,
you knew, okay, this is the bad guy.
Right. I love it. That is so exciting. So then how do you go about writing and podcasting? Like, do you feel that one takes precedence over the other one, or now that you're with a publisher, do you feel like you're going to be switching gears a little? By the way, huge congrats on your numbers. And 2 years of being in business is super fantastic, and I love your merch. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you.
I just had to have a little bit of a fangirl moment there, so just ignore me.
Oh, I'm always glad to get those fangirl moments.
Absolutely.
When it comes to writing is always going to be my first love.
Yeah.
I write every day if I can figure out what the heck my characters are trying to say.
Sometimes they're on vacation and they just don't want to talk to you.
Or sometimes they're acting like 2-year-olds because I made a little mistake.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes you're like, really, I know, like up here, I'm aware that you're not real, but out in the world, I really feel like you should be a little more obedient. I'm just saying, because as far as I'm concerned, you came out of my head, and they're like, yeah, no, see, that's not really how we roll around here. And thanks for trying, but no.
What's worse is when you have one of your characters do something exceptionally stupid.
Yes.
This comes from real experience first time I ever wrote a mystery, I ended up with the old cliche, the butler did it.
Oh, yes. Yes, I think everybody does that. I think it's like you have to get it out of your system. Like you have to do the butler, and then we can move on to, the candlestick with Mrs.
But what's worse is I had the detective ask the killer, do you know who did this?
And he's like, I did. I just, in case you weren't aware, I'm the one.
Needless to say, this detective has been in what I call my corner of shame for the past 10 years. I have tried to coax him out for a rewrite.
No.
And he's like, no. Just shaking his head like a petulant little 2-year-old. No.
I got you. It's funny because, sometimes I think there are people out there who you write their first book and it gets published and you're like, oh, I don't know how you managed to do that. But then there are people who have what I call drawer babies, and those are the ones that stay in the drawer forever and ever. But it's all practice. I mean, if you didn't write that crappy book the first time, then you wouldn't know how to write a better book next time.
Right.
You always want to be improving. Sometimes I don't know exactly how you feel with this. I'm 50 books in. So like there are still times where I'm like, I mean, do you know how to write a sentence? Do we have to go, like, should we go back to first grade where it was like, okay, so you have a noun and then there's a verb and the verb is doing something. What more do you want? Like, I need you to chug. Let's go. We're on the train. We're going up the hill. You can be the little engine that could, but you really have to do it. Like,
yes.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I don't know. I guess I look at, we're creating worlds and we're out of nothing, and I know that in the paranormals, as well as sci-fis and fantasies, you have to make up all the rules. Not all of them. It sounds like your books that you're doing right now are the magic, like I said, the magic realism. So there is some world that's already there, but I did see that you had like sci-fis that are on other planets and on other worlds. Yeah. And with that, you have to come up with like, well, what is this animal called? And what does it look like? And do we have a different language? Do we use money? Do we use credits? Do we use, and I am always, they're from like the 80s, David Eddings, it's a fantasy series. And he actually had a codex afterwards that had like all the gods, all the money, all the what their crops are and that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
I have an imagination. I absolutely have an imagination. It's scary. Don't ask my husband. But I don't think I could do that. I've never stepped into something that's a completely different world because I do like having the base of this world so that I don't have to do all the extras. What is your like, how do you go about deciding whether or not it's in this world, or do you need something that doesn't exist to platform your people?
Okay, now this is gonna sound, well, you're a writer, so it doesn't sound completely nuts when I say this. Nothing
sounds nuts here. That's not a word that we're just going to cut that right out. That goes under the please don't. please don't be worried. Anything goes here. Go for it.
But the sci-fi you're referring to,
mm-hmm.
She came with this universe that's in the book. I was not doing what I was supposed to during philosophy class. I was daydreaming. And all of a sudden, the character of Arya just popped into my head. And I could tell she was in trouble when I first met her. So a little bit of coaxing and goading got me to where she was enslaved at a circus. And
well. I mean, it happens, right?
and the rescue scene, and then all of a sudden I'm halfway through writing it and it's like, wait a minute, whoa, what? She's actually a princess? Okay, so I gotta get her from, okay, she's just now learning what it means to be free to now she's gonna be in charge of people.
Oh, nice. Well, and okay, so then that leads into a different topic. Character arcs. So I know that there's a faction of Cozy Mystery that's like, well, we don't really have to grow too much because I'm going to be writing 47 books in this series, and how am I going to make them go through 47 things? And then there's another faction who's like, I really want my character to grow in every book. So do you go back and forth between that? Do you prefer that it sounds like with your new series that you're moving through stages of life, and so obviously there's an arc in each of those. Have you ever done where you don't have an arc?
I'm currently working on one that is, I'm not sure if it's going to have an arc yet.
Okay.
But it's darn fun to write because I've gotten addicted to writing magical realism. So this is another magical realism.
Yep.
The main characters are Selkies. They're Irish mermaids that can pass for human.
There's a lot to play with there.
Yes.
You got all kinds of stuff that you can do with that.
And the main character has found the body of a Selkie that she knew at one time was actually promised in marriage to. Ooh. But she ran away and married her current husband.
So can I just have to tell you real quick. So my husband is Czechoslovakian and Polish, and his grandmother betrothed him to someone when he was 3. And then we got married when we were 20 and 21. And he told me when we were like 24, hey, by the way, there's a lady out there somewhere who thinks that we're getting married. And I was like, what? What? So he had to go talk to his grandma, and he was like, so like, how does this work? And he goes, like, were there things, is this a legal thing? And I was like, oh, I cannot believe we're having this conversation. Yeah. Did you really just say you were betrothed? I mean, I can't. I'm going to walk over here. When you're done, you let me know. So, I mean, so with that, were you like excited about playing with the idea of what that meant and like her running away from what she should have done?
I was. Okay. And though really, this goes back to the inspiration thing. Mm-hmm. It happened while I was listening to, of all things, the Lilo and Stitch soundtrack.
So we have a philosophy class. We have Lilo and Stitch. So really, like I said, it can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be doing like writerly stuff. You don't have to be sitting in a library. You know, I mean, that's part of the podcast too, is that I want to encourage people who want to write a story to realize that you don't I don't have an MFA, a master's in fine arts. I don't know if you have the education that is.
I don't even have an associate's degree.
Neither do I. I
was this school. Close, and they changed the rules on me.
Oh no! You're like, well, what about that philosophy class? I feel like that was definitely worth at least 5 credits. Let's do that. And then, you know, I mean, so many people are like, well, I don't have an English degree, and I'm like. Neither do I. Did you not just hear me say sometimes I can't put a sentence together? Like I write for me first. I don't know if you also do that.
Absolutely.
From
absolutely.
Your head nodding that you do. And if you're not into it, it's going to come across. It will absolutely come across as, look, you're not into it. Why would your reader be interested? You know, and I so often I escape in books. I mean, life gets hard sometimes, and if I can read a book about a Selkie who finds her former betrothed dead somewhere and now has to like re-involve herself, even though he's obviously not going to want to get married anymore, then why not? You know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's when you say that you don't have a degree in this, I actually have dyslexia. So
Oh,
I misspell words. I actually say that I was born in the wrong century for my writing, because if I were born in ancient Greece,
okay.
my grammar would be spot on. No punctuation, no. That is how bad I am. How my
Although,
editor.
you'd have to wear a toga. So I mean, I kind of like t-shirts. I kind of
Yeah.
like being able to have headphones, ring lights, microphones. So I don't know how I would do being an orator on some marble steps,
Yeah.
but I feel you on the spelling. Is it something that, so do you type it out regardless and then you fix it later because you know what you're saying?
Typing actually helps me control my dyslexia. It only comes out when I handwrite it. I
Interesting.
mix up my
Really?
B's and my D's.
Okay.
And
Is that directional?
yeah.
Because one goes this way and the other goes this way?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But as for, it's like how my editors don't kill me through the computer screen.
That's why there's a computer screen, because you don't have to hand it in.
Is amazing, because
Oh.
I know that I am not turning in the best when it comes to the periods, the commas, the apostrophes, all that.
Yeah.
So do not let lack of education or whatever hold you back from writing.
Your
Because
story. Everybody's got stories, you
exactly.
know. It's interesting. There's a couple of different camps on that too. There are storytellers who, you know, may not be the best at. I have 3 critique partners as well as an editor, because you do not want to see what that thing looks like when I first put it out. It's sad. I suck at days. So if you tell me it's Monday and they're going to do something on Friday, is that 4 days, 5 days? Do you count out the hours? I have no idea. Sometimes I'm like, it's Tuesday. Oh, wait, it's Tuesday again. Wait, is it Monday? I think it might be Tuesday. I think it's Monday. Wait, your day has 72 hours in it. That's not awesome. So I need somebody to help me, but I tell good stories. I suck people in. And is that not what you want? The rest of it, to me, look, you should, if you can take some craft classes, and if it helps you write better sentences, or if you find an editor who's like, I don't care, I honestly, like, I'd rather go through and put all your commas in, don't worry about it, then that's awesome. But if you can't, you can definitely learn to tell stories, but I think if you're natural at telling stories, that's just one step closer to being like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. And actually, I have been told that I am a natural storyteller, but when it comes to the technical stuff, that's what the editors are for.
Right. Well, that's, you know, I don't cut my own hair, but I'm really good at doing it. So there are professionals for a reason. And they, you know, that's, I had an editor once and I'm like, I feel so bad that you like, should I send you an extra comma key? Like what keyboard are you working on? Because I'm sure it's worn off by now. And she's like, look, here's the thing. If I wasn't putting in commas, I don't really know what I would be doing. And I was like, really? And she said, I don't really have a whole lot to change in your story. Like what you do makes sense. The pieces that you're putting together make sense, and if they do, then, you know, so, and everybody's different. I have one house that likes serial commas, and I have one house who's like, I hate serial commas. So I don't really try too hard sorry, I don't really try too hard with that, because as far as I'm concerned, somebody's going to change it anyway. So do your thing. do your thing.
Yeah.
So, well, that's awesome. I am so excited that you took it and ran with it anyway. I do not have any dyslexia or anything like that, and I have a brother-in-law who does, and I know how much of a struggle that can be. And so saying, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway, you can just go over there, is fantastic. And so then, you know, we've talked a lot about writing. As far as the podcast, like, do you find that it enhances your writing to talk with other writers? And I was super excited to see your Juneteenth stuff. I thought that was amazing. I loved the pieces that you were putting together in that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love talking to my fellow authors on the podcast, and it re-energizes me to pursue my own writing, and it's just so much fun.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think you get different perspectives, especially because, you know, there are so many people now that are staying home.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
With everything that's going
yes.
on. I miss Malice Domestic. That's one of the ones that I love to go to. But you know, we haven't had one in 2 years, and now we're going to do a virtual one. And you can, people are like, well, come to the mixer. And I'm like, there are 47 people on this Zoom meeting. I am not going to be able to sit down with somebody and order a Shirley Temple and just like have a quick conversation with just one other person. You have to wait, and everybody's kind of talking about the same thing. Whereas, you know, that might be exciting to you, but this conversation over here might be more exciting to you. And this conversation over here, you might be able to pop in and say, I totally get what you're saying. Let me tell you, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? So, and
yes.
again, there are a lot of people out there who feel like, well, I'm not good enough to do this. And I'm like,
and that breaks my heart to hear that someone thinks that. It's
I know. I'm like, who said that?
I know.
What kind of crap is that? Where did that come from? Because you just need to shoot that right out the side, because that's so not true. Like, who is? And I get that not everybody is going to be a USA Today bestseller.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody's going to hit the New York Times bestseller list. But I don't know. I guess as far as I'm concerned, if I have 4 people who are not related to me who are reading my books, or if I got an email a couple of weeks ago from a guy who is reading the Tally Graver mysteries with his dad, and his dad is very sick. And when his dad is having a bad day, they actually drive around town to all the places that I mention in the Tally books. And it makes his dad feel better because he remembers them. I think he has like an Alzheimer's is part of the diagnosis. And I'm like, how can you not think that you're qualified?
Yeah.
If you bring joy to someone, or conversely, if you write thrillers and you make somebody pee their pants, I mean, it really depends on what you're going for. But if what you're going for is what you hit, why not? There are so many people who are looking to be entertained. There are so many people who, I know for me also, I love sleuths that I feel like I really wish that you would walk down my street so that you and I could go have coffee at Sparks. You know, I want a latte with a shot of confidence.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be in there every day. I'm like, well, like, so how many shots are we talking? Like, can I do like this much coffee and this much shot? Like, I brought my own cup. Is that, can I just hand this big old mug over to you and you fill that baby up and give it back? I'll take some confidence. I'll take some mojo. If we could do a little bit of sass, I'll do that. You know, I mean, the thing is that people love sometimes spending time by themselves and getting so immersed in your world that they're like, I wish this existed.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe sometimes they go out and it does exist.
Yeah.
Finding those kinds of connections with other people, and it also opens doors, you know. I mean, I don't know I tend to be the person where I'll have your whole life history by the time we go from floor 30 to the first floor on an elevator. But, you know, like it's also, let's say somebody's out and they have your book in their hands and somebody walks up and they're like, oh my gosh, what chapter are you on? Because if you're anywhere near 13, you just better be careful. Don't drink during 13 or it's going to come out of your nose and it will not be pretty. Do you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know, that's exciting. I love everything. This is so much longer than I thought it would be. I really need to remember that I talk too much.
Trust me, I get it, because my podcast started at 15 minutes minimum.
Yeah.
And I started getting people who I just loved listening to them. And it's like, okay, we'll go a little longer. Right. And a little longer. Now my longest show is 47 minutes.
Nice. Well, and my thing is that some people are just going to listen.
Yeah.
And some people, you know, like I know, so my day job, I am a document specialist. And so all I do all day is look at charts for hospitals and make sure that everything's there. I like listening to things while that's going on. That's one of the things that I do actually, is I listen to your podcasts because like I can do two things at once and I'm so bored with, with looking at the documents that not bored. That's not fair. Yeah. It doesn't take all of my brain to look at the documents. Sometimes it does, because I'm like, really, that cannot be handwriting. Yeah. I don't know. Can you dictate? I would really rather that you dictate, because I can't understand anything that you've written down. Is that a signature, or did you just draw a picture of SpongeBob? I'm not certain. You know, so being able to engage, I don't really listen to audiobooks because I think they require more of your imagination engaged. But I certainly can listen to two awesome people talk about books, and you have a really wonderful interview / chat style, and just it goes down really smooth. I don't know how else to I am an author, but that's what we're going with. It goes down smooth.
Well, thank you. And
absolutely,
I'm always glad to hear from someone who loves the show, because it's
yes. How could you not? So let's do a little promo stuff, and then, oh my gosh, it's almost 6 o'clock. I'm sorry.
Oh goodness.
It's whatever. We're free flowing here. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So tell everybody where they can find you so that they too can be highly entertained by both your books and your podcast.
My books you can find on Amazon. Just search LeAnna Shields, and you'll come up with my sci-fi, my steampunk, my 1920s steampunk, my...
All that. I'm gonna have to go. I saw that. I'm gonna have to go buy one of those. I did not know that you had done that, and I was like, oh god.
The artifacts. That's one of my favorites. It was one of the first that I delved into having a African American character.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm going to go buy that right now. I won't do it while we're talking. That would be a lot of clicking and irritating, but as soon as we're off, that's going into my basket at Amazon, where they're like, oh, hello, Misty. How are you again?
And as for my podcast, you can find it wherever you find your podcasts. It's on Spotify. It's on Google Cast, or whatever Google's thing is, Apple Cast.
You have a website though for it.
I do have a website for it.
That's where I grabbed it from.
That is www.thecozysleuth.com.
Okay.
/podcast. But you can also sign up for the Cozy Sleuth newsletter, where I will be having featuring specials on books for that month, a little bit of background information on what's going on for getting ready for the show.
Awesome.
I eventually hope to put some short stories in there.
Oh,
just a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I have said awesome a lot of times in here, so no editor is allowed to come in and tell me that that's not an appropriate word. Maybe I'll pick a different word for every episode. So I'm like, all right, LeAnna was awesome. So next time we'll be like, stupendous. That's stupendous. So, well, it was such a pleasure talking to you. I would love to have you on again when we have some other time. I know tomorrow you and I are going to be talking in reverse roles, and that will be just as much fun.
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will. I'm looking forward to it. I will definitely let you know when this comes out, and I hope that you have an amazing day.
I hope you have a great day too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was so much